Hey guys, I just wanted to do a very quick video to show some of the differences between these two models. On the left, it's the 116600 SeaDweller, the first ceramic SeaDweller, 40 millimeters, no Cyclops. And on the right, we have a 116610 LV, identical to the regular Submariner date, but with a green bezel and a sunburst dial. It's a bit hard to see. And then, of course, the ceramic SeaDweller has a matte dial, which is different from most Submariners that have a gloss dial. Difficult to capture the matte. Sorry about that, but I just wanted to discuss a few things because these are, for me, these are really both great options because I really enjoy the ceramic generation Submariner and SeaDwellers for a few reasons. I just love the glossiness of the ceramic bezels, and the GlideLock clasps are probably one of the best innovations, because I change my bracelet size all the time, so it's just great to have on the fly. Because I love the 5-digit Rolex sports watches. I have a couple of them and they are some of my favorite, but it is a huge downside when you have to find like a paper clip or something to change the bracelet in the middle of your day, and you don't want to lose a pin or anything like that. So, and I do have to size them that frequently, and I don't want them just loose all the time, or all the time that my wrist isn't at its biggest. So I just love GlideLock. The first GlideLock I ever had was on the Deep Sea, which is a different GlideLock, and it's my favorite. I think it's for sure the best, but it's probably more expensive to make. I'm sure it is, because how it works is this entire middle section pops up like this, and so you don't actually even have to take it off your wrist. In this case, the bracelet clicks down towards your wrist, so you can't really do this while it's on your wrist. I can do it while it's on my wrist, but not when it's tightly on my wrist. Not when it has to be like completely open and large around my wrist, so it's less convenient. With the Deep Sea, you can just open the safety clasp, open the release, and just squeeze your wrist, and it'll open a bit if it's too tight, and then you just pop it back in place. So it's right in here. You'd have to be messing with it like this, popping it and moving it out here, and sometimes it's hard to close it, so hard to do on the fly without taking it off your wrist. So it's one drawback, but so the biggest difference I would mention, well, there are two major differences between these two sizes. Even though they look very similar, they're both 40 millimeters, they're both Submariner types. They both technically have what you could call a super case, just because it's not the old, very tapered lugs. They are both kind of squat and wider than the older generation, but there's a big difference between these two super cases. So this is the true super case, that as it's known. And I'm going to try to get them in the same plane exactly, so they'll be, it's very clear that the lug to lug dimension is larger on the Submariner, and the width of the lugs is also larger, and so the overall proportion, since they have the same circular diameter, the overall proportions are much more square with the regular Submariner type, or the Hulk, which is the same thing, or the no date, right? Just the Submariner, not the Submariner date. So that is a big difference, and I do really, for that reason, it really makes this SeaDweller special. This SeaDweller is special in several ways to me, because I think it's just, I always liked SeaDwellers. I wasn't a Cyclops guy for a long time. Now I am, because I have one. I never really had them before, but so I always love having the date. I like that there's not a Cyclops, because it is a cleaner look. The Cyclops is its own thing that you have to kind of enjoy it as its own different thing, but it is a big difference that makes, you know, it's out there. Now the negative difference for the SeaDweller is it is thicker. I'm going to try to do this the best I can. So you can see the crystal is thicker on the SeaDweller on the left. The bezel itself is thicker, and I think that's just to compensate for the larger crystal, because it needs a crystal that thick. So if it had the same exact bezel, it would sit too low, and the crystal would be too proud of the case, or of the top of the bezel. The mid case is thicker also, and the screw in back is deeper too, thicker. So that all of that put together, I should have had the exact one. I think it's either 15 or 15 and a half thickness. I'm kind of feel like it's about 15 millimeters. So that's pushing it for a slim watch. I mean, that's not a slim watch anymore. If it's 15, it's just not. Nowadays, a lot of watches are kind of in the 42 range, and they have 15 or so thickness, and it kind of seems like they're on the thinner side, but no, you can't call 15 a slim watch. This is about 12 and a half. So this is pretty much I'd say this is around the max for what you could call a relatively slim fitting sports watch. 12 and a half is not nothing. It still sits proud of the wrist. All dress watches should be about 9. So, well, give or take. But I'd say you can call this a slim fitting dress watch that would go under, more formal wear. This would be pushing it, I think, even though it works. They're very clever, because they make the middle case as slim as they can. They know they need an overall thickness, so they know they're going to have to make this about 15 and a half millimeters thick. They break it up well, so they give a bigger bezel, slightly bigger mid case, but it's not, from far away it doesn't look, well, that's not actually, it's a bit apples to oranges because they're not the same side, but it doesn't look in a completely different league in terms of mid case. So it all blends well, and you usually, especially if your wrist is ever bent or in action, as opposed to this, putting it up, but if it's like this, you don't really see the case back, so it really reads as only the mid case and the bezel. So it's slim enough. It's very wearable, and especially since it's a smaller overall package from the top perspective, like it's a smaller footprint, it really works as an elegant and very, very wearable size. I have about an 8-inch wrist, but it's not that wide. It's kind of a bit deep too. So overall, I couldn't really pick a favorite. I got them actually not that far apart from each other, and I've been wearing the Hulk a lot more. Partly that's just because I almost miss it. Like when I look down and see something else, I almost want to see that green, because the green actually is worth talking about, because when I was before I got this, I was expecting it to be a much darker green. It's kind of a gray day, but in the light it looks very light, very, I couldn't say pastel, but it's a light color. So it's something you have to be ready for. Certain dealers and stuff, I don't know if it's like kind of a ploy, but they almost photograph it in these light boxes that makes it look dark. It looks like the bezel, the dial is black and the bezel is dark green, but in fact the bezel is very light green. So and that took getting used to, but then at the same time I almost always want to look down and just see the green and think about what color it really is. I don't know, that's weird, but you know what I mean. So it's just a very interesting thing to look at, and it's not picking up that well because there's not a lot of sun out, but it is a sunburst dial. So the matte dial on the SeaDweller is something I appreciate, but it's not when I first got it, it wasn't my favorite feature, for sure. I have grown to love it, actually, but and it is a very practical thing, because a matte dial will have a better readability, you know. So if it's really going to be a dive watch, you know, maybe you have a flashlight shining on it or whatever, you don't want any extra light bouncing off the dial other than when you want to read. Now, you can talk about how practical it is as a diving watch. I don't know how many people are really using them, but it's still justifiable to have it that matte color for, you know, the maximum readability. But I have been wearing this one more. I think you could objectively say the case is too big. The lugs are too big, and you could almost say this objectively for everyday wear is too thick. But they're just, you know, they're just characteristics that you have to deal with if you want one. So there's no perfect watch, but I've really been wearing this one more. And even though the SeaDweller was always my grail, because I always thought of the SeaDweller as kind of a cooler, just a little bit more special Submariner. And I guess the green is one of those things that makes the Hulk a little bit different and special. So I think this is like my long-term grail. It's classic, black on black. You can really wear it in more formal occasions, even though it's super sporty. So I don't know. I don't know if it's even worth thinking about stuff like that, or it's a very personal option. But these are dress up-able, you know, if you will. So, and this would be more. This would be more like great for casual and something a bit special. It's great for summer, and it's great for a lot of seasons, because green is a very popular color, obviously, festive and all that. But so anyway, there's my little video, my ramble with no actual point to it, but just a comparison of these two super case, you could call maxi dial for sure. Rolex is modern. So hope you like it. Thanks.